Japan also has a strong interest in preserving open navigation through the South China Sea, where about 400 ships a day transit, including many oil tankers that bring oil to Japan. In May of 2005, Japanese Defense Agency Director Ono Yoshinori paid a visit to the Philippines Defense Secretary Alvino Cruz to devise a mechanism for an annual political and military dialogue between the two countries. In 2000, the Japanese government has also expressed serious concerns about China's growing military capacities. In 2005, the Chinese white papers explicitly stated the threat posed by the increasing presence and activities of Chinese warships within and outside of China's territorial waters, as well as the possibility that Beijing might use force against Taiwan. Likewise, another issue of concern is the East China Sea, and brings back to the issue of economics and energy, as China, South Korea, and Japan are also competing for rights to resources in the area, much like the South China Sea, and therefore Japan has an interest in making sure that China does not get its way in the South China Sea, or else it may try to redeploy some of the same patterns that were successful there in the East China Sea. It is vital to American economic and military interests to keep these sea lanes in the South China Sea open and have stability in the region. However, arms delivery in the Southeast Asia rose particularly steep this year, jumping to 185%, as tensions mounted over rival territorial claims in the South China Sea. Despite this, the United States has rallied behind many Southeast Asian nations, expanded military ties with the Philippines and Vietnam, and even Australia. The State Department in August 2012 also reiterated that the United States has an interest in stability and the unimpeded lawful commerce in the South China Sea, and that Washington is not taking any position or sides on the rival claims. The last thing they stated that they want is a direct confrontation in the South China Sea regarding jurisdictional issues. However, in July, the Southeast nations faced deep divisions during the annual talks in Cambodia, which seemed to be the most unproductive in the last 45 years, concerning the issue of a joint code of conduct concerning the South China Sea. As the political geography of the area quickly expands, encompassing more nations from outside the region, what used to be once a regional dispute is now quickly turned into an international issue. Now, we measured to a degree the tangible value of the Spratly Islands, and we will now look into the significance of its intangible worth. To Malaysia, Vietnam, Brunei, and to some extent Indonesia, they have all been affected by China and feel economically and territorially threatened to varying degrees. However, this situation is a bit different for the Philippines, who also feel a large part of cultural encroachment by the Chinese into territory that they claim is theirs. Likewise, China does not see themselves as joining the claims to the Spratly Islands. Beijing intrinsically sees its assertive policy as a long overdue and legitimate action to protect its territorial integrity. Knowledge of China's previous experience of losing territories to Western imperial powers has been passed on over the generations as a reminder of humiliation of the past, and it also serves to promote patriotism in the present. The communist government claims that they are the true champions of China and nationalism, and guardians of its national sovereignty. And this is only added to the symbolic value of them, for even the smallest part of the Spratly Islands is considered sacred and within the minds of the Chinese people as being part of China. On a more international and global scale, China's domination of the South China Sea can not only allow it to be more diplomatically aggressive towards Taiwan, but also allow it to challenge American dominance of the Pacific. A quick summary of the Southeast Asian dispute. As the political geography of Southeast Asia continues to expand and encompass more nations, such as Australia and Cambodia, it also is increasingly becoming more polarized, with more nations gravitating towards a US or Chinese sphere of influence. However, some nations are caught in between, such as Taiwan, which must choose between siding more with China in order to have access to the Spratly Islands, but in doing so, they would alienate support from America. The geopolitical prospects of the region in the future. For the short term, the essential problem is basically simple. The claimants disagree over the distribution of the Spratly Islands. Also, within this struggle, there is a clash between US and Chinese interests in the area, which may possibly result in a Cold War standoff between the two nations and increased polarization of the area. Likewise, none of the Asian nations can challenge Beijing militarily and can do little to prevent them from using force or intimidation to get their way. And though a major confrontation at the present is unlikely, as gas and oil becomes increasingly more important in the future, the political tensions in the area will likely only escalate unless some mutual sharing of the islands occur where all parties are happy. Likewise, in the long term, there could be three possible outcomes to this. One, some sort of compromise is met where most major parties are appeased. Two, a gamble is made by one of the countries, specifically China, does something on an even grander scale than its ambitious ploy with the establishment of Shansha City, and seeks to expand aggressively despite protests from the international community. All cause number three, some scale of conflict will rise in the area because of its vital strategic, military, economic influence in the world.